Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of Way of the Underhive. This is a series that is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters, and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite skirmish game. And on this episode, we will be discussing a Noble House alliance with House Catallus. We will discuss their strengths, their weaknesses, the fighters they give you, as well as their playstyle, and provide critical information that you can use in your campaign. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the Noble House alliance with House Catallus. So the first thing we're going to talk about, of course, is the positive impact on your campaigns when you make a Noble House alliance. Now, no matter what alliance you take, whether it's a Guilder alliance, a Criminal alliance, or a Noble House alliance, all of them benefit from a Band Apart special rule, and that gives you all the benefits and none of the negatives of taking extra fighters. At the same time, each fighter entourage that your alliance provides you also gives you bodyguards, and these bodyguards are really good at keeping the leader of a Noble House alliance from harm, which also makes them pretty good for getting things done in your individual scenarios, and at the same time also maintains that positive relationship with your Noble House alliance. At the same time, they're also a really good way to balance out numbers in a scenario. They don't take up any crew slots, so bringing experienced fighters with better equipment without impacting your crew sizes for your scenarios is always a good thing. At the same time, it doesn't matter if you're a law-abiding gang or an outlaw gang, regardless of your legal status as a gang in your campaigns, you can always make an alliance with the noble houses. Because noble houses don't care about those kind of things. They view the gangs as nothing more than just tools to be used to achieve their agendas and also to be discarded just as quickly. Now, the negative impact on making an alliance with House Catallus, especially for your campaigns, is that your alliance can easily be broken with drawbacks. The drawbacks that the noble houses provide are actually pretty serious implications for your gangs. They either delete fighters, either they take away your generation of income, or they do some other horrible thing to you. At the same time, you can also expect these houses to basically backstab you at some point. Game of Thrones could actually take a lesson from these guys in terms of how petty they really are. Nobles are backstabbing, plotting, and mercurial allies at best, and they will drop you just as easily as they make an alliance with you, so always keep that in mind, especially when it comes to House Catallus. And we'll talk about some of the things that they can do. Alright, so what we're going to do now is talk about the tactical and strategic assets that House Catallus gives your gang with their alliance. Now, when it comes to tactical assets are game mechanics that affect either individuals or combat on the battlefield. So these are things you're going to see every single time you take this gang onto the tabletop. Meanwhile, strategic assets or game mechanics will impact a gang during the course of a campaign, either through the pre- and post-combat sequences, or with territories, or during income, reputation, or whatever the case may be. Now, tactically speaking, House Catallus has a very strong presence with its host gangs, and the reason why is because you get access to the House Catallus Carnival, which is a very deadly entourage of both long range as well as close combat, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we actually talk about the Carnival. Now, strategically speaking, however, House Catallus is very mid-tier at best. They have no real significant strategic advantage to taking this alliance. You're purely taking these guys because of what they can bring for you, tactically speaking. So now that we're done talking about their tactical and strategic assets, let's go and talk about their benefits as well as their drawbacks. So right off the bat, if you are a House Van Sar gang, you automatically come with a strong alliance with House Catallus, which means it makes it more difficult to break your alliance with this noble house. So if you're House Van Sar gang, you have that going for you. At the same time, they also have a special rule called Faceless Allies, and what that means is that your enemy's gangs receive no income or bounty if they try to shell your captured fighters. So because of that, that part's really nice as well. And you can also ignore your outlaw traits as well. And this could be really potentially helpful because when you remove the outlaw trait from being removed, it's really going to help you out get those intrigues, especially for law misrule type of campaigns, as well as dominion campaigns as well. So that part is kind of nice. And the nice part about that is because since your fighters can't be sold, it's really going to help you out to actually rescue them, and you can actually get those guys back, which means that your opponent, more often than not, is going to give your fighter back to you because, they don't want to risk taking casualties in a rescue mission. So because of that, if you're always worried about things like that happening, like a Venator gang or bounty hunters going after you guys, this is kind of a nice thing. And like we talked about earlier, you also get access to the House Catallus Carnival, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, at the same time, there are also some serious drawbacks when making an alliance with House Catallus. One of them is called Debts to be Paid, and what you do is you roll a d6 for every juvie level character in your gang. If you roll a 1 on that character is removed from the roster. It's supposed to be the fact that House Catallus does mysterious, creepy things, and that sometimes people go missing when it comes to House Catallus as part of the narrative. So because of that, if you have a lot of juvies in your gang, you're going to lose 1 in every 6 juvies, according to Math Hammer. if this happens. So be careful when it comes to that debts to be paid ability. Now, of course, you could have ignored this rule, but if you do that, you test the alliance. At the same time, you also have what's known as the invisible truth drawback, which means that whenever a gang tries to ally with a faction, roll a d6, and on a 1, they automatically become allied with House Catallus. So this is all kind of a wonky drawback, just because it doesn't really go into detail about how this happens. Now, this is where I'm assuming what happens. I assume what happens is this: when you decide to break your alliance with House Catallus because you want to make a different alliance, that's when you make the d6 roll, okay? Because in that case, you automatically become allied with them again. So if you don't like House Catallus too much, you could come back and haunt you. And based on what these guys look like for their miniatures and the artwork, it could, be the reason why that's doing that. However, it also could be interpreted that no matter what gang it is, whether whoever is on the table, if they decide to make an alliance of any kind, they gotta roll that d6, and you might lose your alliance because they might leave you to ally themselves into the gang. So it's kind of opened up to interpretation how you want to do it. I would recommend you talk to your campaign's arbiter about that to figure out how they're going to do that. But for me, we're just going to do it where just anybody makes an alliance whatsoever, they roll a 1 and they automatically get them. So that's the situation with that. So with the drawbacks over with, let's go ahead and talk about the entourage of the House Catallus Carnival. Alright, so let's talk about the House Catallus Carnival. These guys are like Harlequin looking, ICP inspired clown killers is basically what they are as well, which is actually kind of interesting about these guys. So let's go ahead and talk about the House Catallus' little carnival they actually bring with you for their Carnival of Death. So the first guy you get is what's known as a Masked Killer. Now the Masked Killer actually has some pretty solid stats. The Masked Killer has a 6-inch movement, very, very quick. They have 3 weapon skill, 3 ballistic skill, they have 3 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 2 initiative, 3 attacks, 7 leadership, 5 cool, 6 willpower, as well as 7 intelligence. Now when it comes to the weapons that this person can bring, they automatically come with mesh armor, which is really nice. They also have a master crafted long rifle, which is really good to reach out and touch somebody at distance. They have a master crafted last pistol for short as well as medium range combat. They also have photo goggles, which makes them really good in dark environments to do some long range shooting. And they also come with the dodge special rule, which is kind of nice. At the same time, the Masked Killer also comes with a special rule called Artistry of Murder, which means that the Masked Killer's attacks have the shock trait, so you can easily take guys out with that. Plus, the Masked Killer may also reroll flesh wounds from injuries that they cause as well. So, the Masked Killer, one-shot assassin for most situations. That shock trait's really going to help you out to land those out-of-action rolls. Not to mention, you can also reroll flesh wounds, which is really great as well. It makes it even cause serious injuries or even out-of-action rolls as well. The Masked Killer is excellent for long range shooting with enough buffs to bring the pain. At the same time, they're not a slouch in close combat either because they got the dodge skill as well as a mastercrafted last pistol and a good number of attacks as well as pretty good weapon skills. So the Masked Killer is definitely ace in this case. Now, at the same time, he also was known as the Mind Frayed, which is the second member of the Catallus Carnival. Now, this guy's also got a 6-inch movement as well. He's got a 4+ weapon skill, 5+ ballistic skill. This fighter also has 3 strength, 3 toughness, 1 wound, 4 up for initiative, 2 attacks. They have 9 leadership, 10 cool, 5 willpower, as well as 8 intelligence. Now, when it comes to the Mind Frayed actually comes with a pair of flails, so they get that versatile attack, which is nice, as well as the Berserker ability as well, so that way they get multiple attacks in close combat. Now, that part is not so great. I mean, it could be better, but this is the reason why you take the Mind Frayed. They actually have a special role called Infectious Terror. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. So it says, when the Mind Frayed is pinned, all fighters within 6 inches must take a cool test. If failed, the fighter becomes pinned. So that means that your enemies, if they pin the Mind Frayed, they themselves might become pinned too because they're terrified of this thing, what it's going to do to them. And if a Mind Frayed should ever fail a nerve test, all fighters within 6 inches must also take a nerve test or become broken. And while broken, all fighters within 6 inches will also remain broken as well. So that part's pretty crazy too. The idea is supposed to be that the Mind Frayed is like this, Pennywise inspired terror that just kind of scares everybody with no matter what happens to it, if he gets hit, if he gets killed, or whatever the case may be. It's a good little way to actually break your enemy pretty nicely. So what you want to do is you want to send this guy forward on his own. Now, usually when it comes to these entourages, you want to keep the bodyguard close to the leader of the entourage, but not with the Mind Frayed. With the Mind Frayed, you want to send him up all the way up by himself, deep into your enemy lines, and the reason why is that way you can break people, okay? And that's the reason why you send them into your enemy. If you're facing against a close combat enemy, don't worry. You send this guy up forward, he gets hit, cause any problems whatsoever, he's going to break a lot of guys and make them flee as well as break as well, which allows you time to shoot at them as well as to also mess up your enemy's game plan. So the Mind Frayed is really, really nice for that, for that ability to really mess up your enemy's offense or defensive plans as well, which is actually really good. So when it comes to our conclusion on the House Catallus alliance, House Catallus is a mid-tiered noble alliance at best. And the reason why is because while tactically House Catallus is an amazing ally to be able to bring out the fight, be able to outfight and outshoot most enemy gangs, and also mess with their morale and their nerf tests, while those things are really nice, their strategic assets and their drawbacks kind of mitigate this. And the reason why is because, well, you have a good chance of losing a juvie in one sense, and at the same time, they don't really provide anything for you in terms of a strategy. I mean, I guess it can kind of help you out if your fighters get captured, but that's really about it. I mean, the removal of the outlaw status is kind of helpful, without a doubt, but these drawbacks can cause you some problems, and that's the reason why we're kind of putting these guys kind of like in the middle, just because strategically they really don't do much for you in terms of strategy. So there you guys have it. This is our impression of our overview of a House Catallus Noble House Alliance. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this for you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.